Perfect. So, welcome everyone to another series of our Crypto Mondays London Academy sessions. So Crypto Mondays London Academy session started off this year. The aim of the Academy session is which runs in parallel to our IRL events. So the aim is to kind of introduce everyone who will be attending the IRL events, or those who are joining us from outside London or abroad, to kind of familiarize everyone with the topic, which will be DAO this month. And we welcome everyone from all backgrounds to participate in these events. And our aim is to provide mass education to people, and also to promote blockchain and crypto initiatives, and make people known about the latest trends and topics within the industry. So I will also, today's topic is DAOs. So by the end of the sessions, we're hoping everyone will have a clear view of what is a DAO, how a DAO works, the governance and voting within the DAO format, and also the benefits and challenges. And hopefully we'll get to see some real world examples of fully functioning DAOs also. I would also like to welcome Caitlin, who is the founder of Crypto Mondays London, to give a short introduction of what we do also.
Nice. Thanks, Rohit. That was a brilliant introduction to Academy. I just want to say really, really quickly, for those of you who don't know, Crypto Mondays London was started in 2018 with the idea to provide a safe, accessible space where anyone and everyone could come and learn about all things Web3. So every month, we are a nonprofit. So every month, with the help of our sponsors, which includes Wasim of Vault 12, and he'll say a word here in a minute. But with their help, we host meetups, and we sort of have networking, bookending the event. And then in the middle, usually we curate a panel or fireside chat or a keynote about something relevant in the Web3 space. And Academy sort of came off the back of that, because quite a lot of feedback that we got was that our talks were a little bit too intermediate level for some people, and we really don't want anybody to feel excluded. We're all about onboarding into the Web3 space. I'm a big believer that there's room for everyone at the table. And so that's sort of how Crypto Mondays London began, and also how Crypto Mondays Academy began. So that's it. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Caitlin. So we have our next IRL event taking place on the 19th, which is next Monday. So if you haven't registered already, please scan this QR code, where you'll be taken to our meetup page and also Luma. So feel free to register there, and hopefully see some of you guys on Monday as well. So all the Academy sessions are recorded and also shared on YouTube. So if you missed a session, or if you'd like to see a replay, join our socials. I'll leave a link in there for our YouTube channel as well, where you can see the replay. Next, I would like to bring up Wasim, who is the founder of Vault 12, our sponsor for today. He'll give us a introduction about what Vault 12 does. So Wasim, over to you.
Hi, sorry about that. Hi, I'm Wasim. I'm with Vault 12. We basically enable people to set up a legacy contact for all their crypto wallets and enable digital inheritance for all their crypto assets. We've been around since 2015. We're the pioneers in crypto inheritance, and we love the Crypto Mondays London community. And we thought the Academy program has been amazing all year, so we really love the fact that we get to sponsor it. And I look forward to seeing everyone next week in person. Hopefully it'll be cooler than today.
I hope so too. Thank you so much, Wasim, for that introduction. And I'll leave a link here to Vault 12 as well. So feel free to check them out and all the wonderful things they're doing in this space also. And just kudos, Vault 12, Digital Commonwealth, Jade City, Shine, and Voice of Crypto. Without them, we don't know what we'll do at Crypto Mondays. As you know, we're not for profit, and with their support, we're able to bring you guys more sessions like this. This slide shows all our links to all our social media. So if you haven't joined already, make sure you join, and all our events will be posted there. And sometimes we also have free giveaways to tickets to major blockchain conferences and also discounts. So make sure you do check us out on our socials and follow them. We're also leaving a short survey link. So if you guys have any feedback on our Academy sessions or have any topics for our future events as suggestions, hit us up and also leave a feedback there, and that will greatly help us with our planning and with all the rest of the Academy sessions we planned as well. So that brings us to Alice. I'll let you introduce yourself. If you could just briefly tell us what you do, how you came about working with DAOs, and also what you do at Key. That'll be great. And also, once again, if you have any questions for Alice, make sure you use our chat functionality and leave your questions there, and we will have about 8 to 10 minutes towards the end of the session to go through your questions also. Over to you, Alice.
Hi, can you hear me? Yes. So hi everyone, and thank you for inviting me. So I've been in the crypto space since 2015, actually 2014, but I started working in 2015, so a very long time. And over the years, as the ecosystem evolved and changed, my role also evolved and changed. And specifically, I followed two main verticals over the course of my career. The first one was oracles, and the other one was cross-chain bridges. And specifically, as part of the cross-chain bridges project, I got to work on the behind the scenes of launching our own project DAO, and then managing that DAO, as well as interacting with other DAOs for cross-project initiatives, for example. And that got me really interested into the DAO sector. And so then I moved to Key, and I started working all in, and I went all in into the DAO topic because Key is provides treasury management services to the leading and biggest DAOs in the space. And specifically, my role is interacting with all of these different communities and help them and the projects grow further. So yeah, I hope that my session today will help in introducing the topic of DAOs and answering some of the questions that you might have. Should I go straight in? Okay, so I will probably share my screen. Okay, I think you need to stop your screen sharing first. Okay, let's see if it works now. Sorry, it's asking me for authorization. Let's see if we can make it. No? Hmm. Okay. No, it's actually not letting me share the screen. No, it's not letting me. Can I send you the link and, oh, wait. Sorry, everything disappeared on my screen. Actually, I think you have the link to my slides, so maybe you can just
Sure.
share the screen yourself. Thank you.
Yeah, got it now. Let me just I could share the one that you sent me previously, Alice. That's it.
Oh, yeah, I think you should have the link, yes.
Okay, just loading it up now. Cool, I have it here. We're good to go.
Perfect. Okay. So, yeah, this is just like the title of what we are doing today. So we can go to the next one.
Sure.
Yeah, I wanted to start by explaining where the DAO concept was born. And actually, I can't see the screen anymore. Can you see the screen?
Rohit, we lost you. We lost your screen sharing.
I'm back. Can you hear me? Sorry. I really need to change my internet provider, looks like. Let me just share the screen again. Yeah, there we go. Can you see?
Yes. Yeah. I just wanted to start by explaining where the DAO concept came from. So initially, it was a philosophical idea that was promoted by the cypherpunk and crypto anarchist movements, and they advocated for using cryptography and decentralized technologies as tools for social and political change. Of course, at the time, there wasn't the concept of DAOs. Smart contracts weren't introduced yet. Ethereum didn't exist. So it was just an idea. But then afterwards, with the introduction of smart contracts, this idea sort of came to life. And this is how the concept of a DAO was born. DAO means Decentralized Autonomous Organization. And we can go to the next slide. And so when smart contracts were born, this was the enabler of DAOs, because we were able to use this idea and put it into like a practical use through smart contracts. And DAOs enable a collective of individuals to make decisions through voting mechanisms without the need of intermediaries. So as I said, like the cypherpunk movement wanted to create and use like technological tools to remove the need for intermediaries. And this is what smart contracts do. So it's what smart contracts are used beyond DAOs for a bunch of different dApps use cases. For example, let's just think at the DEX use case, the centralized exchange. You remove the intermediary. And this is exactly what DAOs do as well. So the aim is to remove the intermediary and to let the collective of individuals take decisions on certain topics. And this is how governance is enforced. So governance is enforced through smart contracts, which automatically execute the actions based on agreed upon rules. We can go to the next slide. So the first real attempt at launching a DAO was in 2016, and it was called DDAO. So the team at Slockit was a project back then. Of course, in 2016, Ethereum was in its infancy, and like most of the projects you see today didn't exist. So this was a very innovative project, and launching a DAO was like a huge experiment at that point. But the team at Slockit decided to launch this DAO, and this was like one of the first major attempts at creating an entire DAO. At first, this was like very popular and a huge success. Remember, like we are in 2016, so very different situation compared to today and today's market. Still, the DAO was able to collect and raise $150 million in ETH. At the time, the price of ETH was very low compared to today. So this was a huge amount of ETH donated by more than 11,000 individuals and individual addresses that basically sent money into the DAO, and they were able to raise $150 million in just 28 days. Unfortunately, next slide, please. Unfortunately, this didn't end well because a hacker was able to stole 50 million worth of ETH, and this is like, it goes beyond the concept of DAOs, but this is how the reentrancy attack vulnerability was discovered. It was like the first time happening. And now, luckily, we made huge steps forward, because it's like one of the best practices when writing smart contracts is to write reentrancy attack safe smart contracts. So this was like a huge improvement and step forward for the community in terms of smart contract security. Unfortunately, it came with a negative aspect that a hacker was able to steal 50 million worth of it. Actually, there's another story on how these funds were recovered, but like specifically focusing on DAOs, of course, this was this destroyed completely both the DAO experiment and this Slockit team and project. But it also opened a debate within the community on the code is low idea. Up until that point, the assumption was that code was low. So smart contract, so because of like the DAO concept itself, the assumption behind the DAO concept was that code is slow. So the smart contract code powering the DAO itself is slow. So whatever the code says, that's what's going to happen, and that is slow. But as the DAO was able to show, sometimes it's not convenient that code is slow, because the attacker in this case was able to steal $50 million worth of ETH by using the code itself. So there wasn't a vulnerability, there wasn't a bug within the smart contract. It just leveraged the smart contract as it was, and he followed the rules. He played by the rules. So this is why this huge debate in the community came to be. And so this opened the question that I would say in some cases it's still a question today of what happens if the code has vulnerability. So again, this is an open point that we still have. And I would say today we realize that code is not always low, but it's still an open point, I would say. Next slide. So thanks to the DAO experiment, we were able to implement a first attempt at an entire at the creation of an entire DAO. And of course, this demonstrated that maybe it was too early to do that, but at the same time, it also demonstrated that it was possible to do it. And so here is a basic DAO structure. So governance tokens, governance token holders stake their tokens within the DAO, and this way they can actively participate in DAO governance with voting and opening of proposals. What this means is that so the whole purpose of a DAO and governance tokens, community around a certain project can actively participate into the governance and the decision-making process of that specific project. So this is the basic structure, because then we have more advanced structures that we will see later in this talk. But for now, we can stop here. So the basic structure is that we have governance token holders. They stake their tokens within the DAO, where the DAO is a set of smart contracts. One of the smart contracts that we have in this DAO is the staking smart contracts. And so one of the key functions within a DAO is the ability for token holders to stake within the DAO. And then next step, after the staking happened, the next step is to actually participate in the decision-making process of the project. And this is done via voting. So token holders vote on DAO proposals. Again, there is a voting smart contract. And token holders are able to vote on DAO proposals. And based on whatever the vote is, an action is triggered. So let's say, for example, common votes could be around allocating funds to a certain initiative, or upgrade the project and the protocol themselves. So those are common examples of proposals that are usually voted on within the DAO. And based on what the token holders decide, the action is triggered. Of course, you don't need to be a developer to do this. Anyone can do this because there are nice people who build interfaces that are easy to access. And so example of interfaces are Tally and Agora, and also Snapshot. So these are tools and platforms that facilitate the interaction to these smart contracts. Let's go to the next slide. So after the whole DDAO experiment, MakerDAO, the year after, in 2017, came to be, and MakerDAO launched its DAI stablecoin and DAO governance framework. Now, MakerDAO is what I would say the first successful experiment of a DAO that is actually working and has been working for the past 6 years. So again, like this didn't happen like too long after the very first DAO experiment, but still it worked. And I would say MakerDAO is the project who demonstrated the actual applicability and successful applicability of DAOs. MakerDAO indeed was launched in 2017. So over the past 6 years, it was able to build its own DAO and evolve its own project. And it is now one of the most sophisticated examples of a decentralized autonomous organization in the DeFi space. Its governance structure specifically is a key element in the whole protocol, and because the DAO is responsible for the governance over the Maker protocol, which governs the issuance and management of the DAI stablecoin. So if you're familiar with the DAI stablecoin, just you should be aware of DAOs, because what makes the existence of DAI possible is the Maker protocol, and the Maker protocol is governed by the MakerDAO. Next slide. So another example is Uniswap DAO. As you can see, those are both examples in the DeFi space, and that's because DeFi is currently the largest vertical in the crypto space, in the decentralized crypto space, and it has projects that evolved and are now quite big. So let's think MakerDAO is an example, Uniswap is another example, Aave, Balancer, Lido. All of these projects are quite big projects, I would say, and because they evolved over time and they became so big, the need of setting up a DAO to govern those projects came to be. And that's why most of the examples that we see of functioning successful DAOs is within the DeFi space. So a few years after the MakerDAO launch, there was Uniswap. So in 2020, the Uniswap community decided to launch their own token, Uni, as a governance token and a utility token. And as part of the launch of their own Uni token, the Uniswap community was allocated 430 million Uni to support the DAO's growth and stability. So these 430 million Uni today mean in dollars around 4 billion. And at the peak of the market, it reached 12 billion dollars in value. So this is like a quite significant DAO. It's currently one of the biggest DAOs in existence. And that's why I wanted to talk about it, because I think it's very relevant. And the Uniswap DAO became a critical component of the Uniswap project and the Uniswap protocol. If you're familiar with Uniswap, you will know that Uniswap Labs is a company, like a regular US-based company, that is the main driver of the development of the Uniswap protocol. So why do we need a DAO? Because like we want the protocol to be more decentralized, and we want the decision making of the protocol to be more decentralized. And this is why the Uniswap DAO was introduced in 2020 to satisfy this need. And its focus is on grants, and this had a significant impact on increasing the community participation, contributing to the growth of both the Uniswap protocol itself and the DeFi ecosystem. So while we have Uniswap Labs that is mostly focused on development of Uniswap protocol, the DAO is mostly focused on its growth and the growth of the protocol and the DeFi industry as a whole. In fact, one of the main initiatives that came out of the Uniswap DAO is the Uniswap Foundation. The Uniswap Foundation is in fact funded by the Uniswap DAO, and it was created with a vote within the Uniswap DAO. Over the last 4 years, the Uniswap DAO supported 100+ grants awarded across developers, researchers, and governance contributors. It supported protocol incentives to support the Uniswap expansion across chains. So you may know that Uniswap is now available on multiple blockchains, layer 1 and layer 2 blockchains. That was done through the Uniswap DAO. It also supported contributions to DAO-aligned initiatives with ecosystem-wide impact. For example, the Uniswap DAO gave quite a big grant, actually two quite big grants twice, to the DeFi Education Fund. The DeFi Education Fund is a legal initiative that promotes DeFi-friendly legislation. So again, like the Uniswap DAO is supporting the Uniswap protocol, but also the DeFi ecosystem as a whole. And finally, the Uniswap DAO was able to fund the active and healthy DAO participation. Next slide. Funding the active and healthy DAO participation means encouraging the community to actively participate in the DAO itself, in the Uniswap DAO. So while being a quite successful DAO, because it has over 4 billion in treasury, so it's one of the biggest DAOs out there, it has a problem, which is the active voting participation. So the Uniswap DAO is actually quite active in the sense that other than token holders staking directly within the Uniswap DAO, they have like a more advanced structure, I would say intermediate, where they also have DAO delegates. DAO delegates are people or entities that represent token holders within the DAO. So token holders, instead of like directly participating within the DAO with staking and voting, they can decide to delegate their voting power and their tokens to DAO delegates. And they can decide to do that because, for example, they don't have time to follow what's happening in all of the different DAOs, or maybe they don't have the expertise and the knowledge to vote on the specific proposals. So they decide to delegate their voting power to reputable entities or people that that have reputation and skills and the expertise to positively contribute to these DAOs. But yeah, so I would say the Uniswap DAO is successful in this sense, but again, it still has, despite having DAO delegates, it still has a challenge, which is voter apathy. So not that many token holders participate in the governance of the protocol. And so one challenge that the Uniswap DAO is trying to solve, is trying to incentivize the participation of these token holders and delegates within the protocol. So yeah, again, same as before. So what happens is token holders can stake directly to the DAO and then vote on proposals, or they can decide to delegate their voting power to delegates. And in this case, it's the delegates who vote on proposal or open proposals. And in the case of Uniswap specifically, the votes are to pay out and to support and to fund initiatives, specific initiatives like the Uniswap Foundation. So this is the action that is triggered. If the vote passes, the payout gets approved. If it doesn't pass, nothing happens. Next slide. Okay, so we actually have a question, which is, what is an average DAO voter turnout percentages on proposals in the basic structure vs advanced structure? So this is a number we don't have, unfortunately. It would be great to have this number, but we don't have it. And that's because, so the basic structure is what we have at the very beginning. So that's where we start from. So all DAOs usually start from that, so without delegation, and that's because it's easier, but it's the standard for bigger DAOs to then move to the more advanced structure. So I would say as we advance to the more advanced structure, the percentage of voter participation increases, and that's mostly because we introduce delegates. But again, there is no incentive to introduce delegates if the DAO is too small. So it's, yeah, I would say you need to balance the two things. And unfortunately, we don't have specific statistics on that. What new methods do they use to address common issues like voter participation and governance fatigue? Yeah, that's a great question. So one way is incentives, so financial incentives for the role of delegates. So because, I mean, in certain DAOs, Uniswap comes to mind, Arbitrum comes to mind. The role of a delegate is actually hard work because there are so many topics for discussion, so many proposals. So it's like a very time-consuming role, and that's why there are incentives. So Arbitrum, for example, has incentives for delegates, and there are, I think in the last batch, there were 54 delegates that were paid delegates for their role within Arbitrum DAO. Uniswap also has incentives for delegates. So this, like the financial incentive, certainly contributes to increasing voter participation, but also to decrease governance fatigue. One common strategy that different DAOs are now leveraging is the scheduling. So having a calendar where basically votes can be open just on Thursdays and they last 2 weeks. So having like a cadence is very helpful. And again, Arbitrum introduced this recently. SAFE has that as well. So that's very helpful to have. Voter participation is all on chain, is it not? All voted tokens, all issued tokens. So yeah, voter participation is not all on chain because usually there are 2 stages to voting. The first stage is snapshot, which is off chain. And then the second stage for the final approval is on-chain. So we do have the data for the on-chain votes. It's just that it's very time-consuming to aggregate them, especially if we have to consider the thousands of DAOs that we have. I mean, there are statistics for specific DAOs. So, for example, there are statistics for Uniswap DAO and for Arbitrum DAO, and like for the single DAOs, we do have statistics, but we don't have the aggregated statistic across all of the different DAOs. If you're interested in knowing more about this, actually, there is a great website which is called DeepDAO. That has lots of insights on this topic specifically. So, Constitution DAO, I included this just because I think it's a nice and interesting experiment that we saw in 2021. And it's to showcase that DAOs are not just for governing major projects, but they can be spinned up to, I don't know, solve the most varied functions. And Constitution DAO, I think it's a great example of this, because as you may know, the concept of DAOs saw a significant growth in popularity over the last couple of years. And that's demonstrated by the fact that we have, I think, over 3,000 DAOs active today, so a huge number. And one of those was Constitution DAO, that was created with the specific aim of purchasing an original copy of the US Constitution. So Sotheby was open, and you could actually purchase a copy of the US Constitution. So Constitution DAO was created, and in a few days, the DAO raised $40 million with people from all over the industry participating in it. As you can see here, there's a screenshot of Hayden Adams, the founder of Uniswap, who was very glad of seeing this initiative and enjoyed the show. So it was an unprecedented event showcasing the power of DAOs to turn community-driven initiatives into movements. Unfortunately, we weren't able to buy the Constitution because the CEO of Citadel outbid us. But still, I think this was a positive experiment because, again, it showcased how powerful DAOs can be. I mean, we were able to raise 40 million in just a few days with thousands of people joining, even non-US people joining. So this really shows the power of DAOs. Next slide. Optimism Collective. So another very popular DAO is Optimism. This was born in 2022. And the launch of the Optimism DAO represented a significant step towards decentralized governance for the Optimism network. Here we have an example of a project that is not a DeFi project. It's a layer 2 solution. Still, the DAO, can we go back? Yes. Still, a DAO is very useful in this case because it's still helping in governing and the decision-making process of the sorry, I lost the slides. It can help in the decision-making process of the Optimism protocol and layer 2 solution. So it's called Optimism Collective instead of Optimism DAO because they like it this way. And it's focused on supporting projects and initiatives that provide public goods to the Optimism and Ethereum ecosystems. So it funds grants for open source software development, community engagement, educational resources, intending to to expand and foster a robust ecosystem within the Optimism network. So I put this here because I think it's interesting. The approach Optimism followed, it's slightly different compared to what we have seen. So compared to Arbitrum or Uniswap or MakerDAO, so the approaches that we saw until now are different in the sense that they vote on proposals, and based on the vote, something happens. In this case, it's the same, except the funding is retroactive. So actually, to get funded by the Optimism DAO, you need to first build something that is a public good. So it works in a reverse way compared to all of the other DAOs, where you first ask for the funding, and then if you get funding, you build something. This is reversed, and it's specifically focused on public goods. So it needs to be something that benefits the public, the community, the Optimism ecosystem, or the Ethereum ecosystem at large, or other ecosystems built on top of the op stack. So for example, you might have heard of Base. Base is quite a popular layer 2 solution, and it's built on top of the op stack. So again, if you build something on Base, you are, and it's a public good, you are eligible to get funding and grants from the Optimism Collective. Next slide. Arbitrum DAO. So 2023, we are approaching the end. Arbitrum DAO was launched, and it allowed ARB token holders to participate in the decisions around protocol upgrades and ecosystem funding. So Arbitrum needs to be mentioned because it's one of the most advanced DAOs in terms of activity and community participation. Despite being launched just in 2023, it actually counts 260,000 delegates, with 35% of ARB token holders delegating their voting power. This is a huge number, especially if we compare it to other active DAOs that have lower numbers. So I think we kind of saw the evolution of DAOs with MakerDAO that was with the DAO initially, that was the first attempt, and it was adopting a basic DAO structure. And then we saw Uniswap and Optimism and MakerDAO. Those are, I would say, intermediate kind of DAOs in terms of structure, because they do have lots of voting proposals that are relevant for the governance and the decision-making of their respective ecosystems, but they do have delegates, but with Arbitrum, I think we reach even a further level, in the sense that we do have a higher degree of participation, and also delegates and token holders cannot just vote about funding, ecosystem funding proposals, but also actual protocol upgrades. Next slide, please. Yeah, so here we see, yes, here we see the structure of Arbitrum DAO. So as you can see, we have governance token holders that can stake directly within the DAO, or we have DAO delegates that can operate their function within the DAO. And in this case, we have, as we had for Uniswap, for example, and as we had for Optimism, we have payouts, so funding of initiatives, but we also have updated to product smart contracts. So, for example, we had recently an upgrade to the Arbitrum protocol that was voted and approved by DAO governance. Next slide. So the DAO's landscape, I was wrong. It was not 3,000 organizations. It's 2,446 organizations, according to DeepDAO. And 336 have over 1 million in treasury. So as you can see, there is like a very large amount of experiments happening in the DAO landscape. And this is mostly because it helps with the decentralization aspect of projects. So most projects, when they launch, they are not completely decentralized, and they follow a progressive decentralization roadmap. And it's very common that this roadmap includes the launch of a DAO to decentralize the decision-making process of where to allocate funds or how to upgrade the protocol. And there are 10.9 million governance token holders across the industry, apparently, with 3.2 million active voters and proposal makers. So as I said, one of the biggest challenges is voters' apathy. And this is like Uniswap is one case, but more in general, this is an industry challenge, industry-wide challenge. Even Arbitrum, that has like quite a good level of participation compared to the other DAOs, it's still at 35% of tokens staked within the DAO. So it's still, you know, a low amount, I would say. We have at the moment 17.8 billion in DAO treasuries, dollars, that's $1 billion in DAO treasuries, with many treasuries. Unfortunately, another challenge is that many treasuries are very volatile because most of them are in the native token of the project. So in Arbitrum, for example, it's mostly in ARB. For Uniswap, it's mostly in Uni, and so on and so forth. So this is a case where that's a challenge because they are inherently very volatile. And that's actually what we do as part at Karpatki. We help DAOs. It's one of the things we do. Our flagship service is to have DAOs diversify their treasuries so that they can have better predictability, and there is less risk concentration on the on a single token, on a single asset, and it's easier to have a runway, a predictable runway for the project. And then once you diversify the treasuries, you can also you know, set up passive income strategies and yield generation strategies that again help send new money into the treasury, and again it helps with runway and funding of the project. So this is something that we have a solution for it, and it's ongoing, but it's still one of the biggest challenges, the fact that all DAOs all DAO treasuries are born with a single asset, with the treasury composed by a single asset. And top DAOs today, in terms of how big their treasury are Optimism, Uniswap, Mantle, Arbitrum, and Gnosis. Those are multi-billion dollars DAOs. Next slide. Thank you for your attention and for having me. If you have any questions, happy to answer.
Yeah, hello, my name's Josh. Thank you, Alice. That's good overview of kind of what the different protocols are doing. I put a question in earlier saying about the issues to address voter participation. You kind of said you incentivize the delegates to kind of do the delegating for the token holders. I'm just thinking, if you're incentivizing the delegates, doesn't that kind of centralize that control in those delegates that want to pull those tokens together? And do you have a split on kind of with each protocol, which ones are kind of sole token voters, and then those that are delegates that are holding the most tokens? Is there limitations to that?
Well, I mean, I see your point, and you are right in the sense that, of course, there is a degree of centralization in having delegates, because the number of delegates will never be the same number of token holders actually voting. Still, if you look at Arbitrum DAO, you see there are 260,000 delegates. So, I mean, I would say that's a reasonable degree of centralization. But yeah, you're right. It is a concern, especially if the number of delegates it's too small. And that's why there are incentive programs to expand the number of delegates. So there are DAOs, for example, Gnosis DAO at the moment is running a program to basically financially incentivize new delegates if they join the DAO. Or Arbitrum recently had a redelegation week, again, to incentivize the expansion of the number of delegates and the expansion of the number of token holders participating and delegating in the Arbitrum protocol. So it's a problem, but it's also a solution, because it enables actually more participation, in the sense that you're right, it will be more decentralized to go straight from the token holders to the DAO without delegates. But how many of these people would actually participate in voting? And we are talking of like lots of votes. If we look at Arbitrum, for example, there are 4 or 5 votes, even more sometimes, votes per week. And you have to study the proposals, understand what's happening. And before that, there is the forum. And on the forum, like every morning I open the forum and I have 20 new threads and new proposals and initiatives going on. So you're right, it's a point of centralization, but also it kind of, it's a solution that we found at the moment that improves participation.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Thank you. I've got another question, but I'll leave someone else to ask.
I think one of the question was maybe Alice, we can keep it very brief since we've kind of gone over time. What are kind of some of the regulatory concerns regarding DAOs, and according to different jurisdictions and different regulators, what are kind of the common misconceptions, or how it's regulated?
Yeah, if you know the answer to this, let me know, because I don't know. This is work in progress, I would say. So some legislations and some countries are trying to understand this. But to be fair, we are not even close. So there is an effort ongoing in trying to understand how to regulate DAOs, how to regulate this phenomenon. What do we need to do? What are the liabilities? Things like that. But it's still an open question and an open challenge across the industry.
Do you know, because that was my second question on regulation. Obviously, it's decentralization, so there's not a single managing director or a board of directors that can be held liable for an enforcement of a smart contract or something. What specific jurisdictions are you seeing that are being at the forefront of that? Is this legislation being written? Because I think with MiCA and like within Europe, it's kind of these like crypto asset providers that they're talking about. Is there a jurisdiction that are kind of being at the forefront of DAO regulation?
Not really.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's
Really.
interesting. Thank you.
Of course.
But yeah, I mean, if you have any more questions, Joshua, I think Alice left her Twitter handle, or you can reach out to Alice via LinkedIn as well. Yeah, that goes out for everyone. But yeah, I think it's time to wrap up, and we've gone over by a few minutes. And just want to say a big thank you, Alice, for taking on this session and for the wonderful insights you gave us on our on the topic of DAOs. Thank you once again to everyone who joined today as well. And hopefully, if you have more questions, come down to our IRL event next Monday. Get your tickets, and then hopefully see you guys there soon. Thank you so much and have a great evening.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.